This story was written by John Crabtree's daughters and modified by his third-generation great-granddaughter, me. It provides insight into British immigration in the mid to late 1800s, the Australian gold rush, period vocabulary, historical lifestyles, and Melbourne's exponential population and economic growth that has helped shape Australia today. John was going to make a fortune, a big fortune. He stepped onto Melbourne docks after being months at sea, and he thought of his little family that he had left here in England, wishing they would have a better life than that air-polluted, noisy, crowded factory town from where he came. He knew money would fix this. As he stood there on the docks, John reached into his pocket and pulled out his coins. He counted 6 pennies. That wasn't even enough to buy half a cheese toastie. John needed to find work. It was easy enough to come by, though. Many folk had rushed off to the goldfields, leaving their jobs for others to fill. That very same day that he arrived, John's first job was to unload cargo. It was heavy sacks of coal, and on his back it skinned and it grazed like sandpaper. His damaged skin was cleaned and hardened with nothing more than just a good splash of salt water. After unloading the coal, John found new work as an engine driver for a riverboat. It paid good money. Very good money, enough for him to save, line his pockets, and head off to the goldfields. Heading southwest of the city to a campsite called Forest Creek, John met with failure. So he headed up north with a companion to far north Queensland. They tramped through bush as thick as this and carried tools as heavy as these. There was the mud, there was the insects, there was the heat, there was the need for deodorant, but no gold. John had travelled big distances, often without food, and returned to Melbourne City with not even an itty-bitty fleck of gold. John was determined to find his fortune. He needed his family to be here in Australia with him, free from the air-polluted, noisy, crowded factory town from where he came. Again, he turned to the city jobs where he earned his money from stacking sacks of wheat, from operating engines, and from pitching fences made from stone. The money. Good money. Enough money to bring John's family over. His wife and 2 small children sailed from England on the RMS Mermaid. Now, history has it that there was more than one ship called the Mermaid. But this Mermaid was built for the gold rush, moving people and mail from England's Liverpool docks right down to Melbourne. And there on Melbourne's docks, John, all tanned and well-dressed, reunited with his family. In fact, he looked so different to that pale English man that his wife waved goodbye to all those months ago. She hardly recognised him. They settled in a town just outside the city, but only months had passed before John's gold fever had the family travelling up north for 9 days, horse and cart, over the mountains to a new town called El Dorado, miles from anywhere. There, the family lived in a 2-roomed bark hut with a dirt ground for the floor, wooden boxes for seats, and fabric for windows. Beds were crafted from flour sacks with saplings on either side, tied to legs with the tips buried into the ground. Living in El Dorado, John made good money working as an engine driver on someone else's mines. He saw profit. He thought, I'll start up my own company. He then set up his own mining company. He tunnelled. He tunnelled for 18 months with no profit. So desperate was John to find his gold fortune, he tried overseas in New Zealand while sending his family back down to Melbourne. New Zealand brought success, but New Zealand brought him illness. Sadly, he returned to Australia. After recovering from his illness, John had not yet made his family fortune. The gold rush days were still strong, but there was a saying, in a gold rush, sell shovels. John had a new plan to make his fortune. The gold rush era brought many people to Melbourne and its towns. More people, more buildings, more roads, and more railways. John was good with engines, so he applied to be a train driver. And here he is here standing in front of his train. In fact, the demand for public transport was so high that John drove trains right up until his retirement. What's more is his train driving wages provided that better lifestyle he wanted for not his 3, not his 6, but his 12 healthy children.